teacher, I would say. In the sense, this subject, teaching science is difficult actually, especially reaching out the kind of community which whom we brought here. So the question is, this is the decade on eco restoration, and river ecosystem being a very fragile and very important ecosystem. What are the kind of policy gaps in India in assessing the river health using scientifically developed indicators, not the kind of the anecdotal indicators, but the science-based indicators? Do you think Indian situation is in a better position compared to the South Asian region, or what is the kind of scenario in India?
Yeah, first of all, all the rivers in India, they are the lifelines. And especially, we have a very unique scenario now. We have 21, 2030 as UN decade of ecosystem restoration, as well as the same period ending in 2030 is the time to achieve UN Sustainable Development Goals. In both the cases, maintaining the water security is one of the major challenges that India faces, especially in the context of the increasing population, decline in the water resources, and considering also the fact that we have the most polluted river systems globally, okay, in India. And then, and if you look at the projected estimates of the freshwater requirement by 2030 and 2050, then it's the role of the government as well to see that we are maintaining the integrity of the river as such. And what is, as you asked, what is basically lacking in India is basically a holistic policy on river restoration. And what we have fragmented activities going on, including with the Clean Ganga program, which of course is an iconic thing. But the thing is that the contexts are different in different landscapes of India. For example, we have 10 biogeographical zones, and the river systems in each of the zone may have a different ecological history altogether. So what we basically require in India is strengthening the scientific database on the health of the river as such. The standard parameters with which we can assess what exactly is the health scenario of the river. And for that, for majority of the major rivers, we have the data. But you need a long-term data in order to have the restoration program for a particular river. And our scientists are actually good in compiling the data, but these data are available only for few rivers. But the scenario is almost same. The threat factors are all similar in majority of the ecosystem. So what we need is actually a policy, an overarching policy document, how scientifically we can actually go for a river restoration program. And one more thing associated with that is actually the river is basically in the custody of multiple departments in India. So that means there should be a role of the environment department, irrigation department, revenue department, and things, and even including the energy sector there. So in that case, we need actually an integration.
Okay, so since you represent the university research system, at the university level we are generating data. But do you think this data actually being used by the policymakers or the so-called the system implementers in better managing? For example, if you take engineering community, and the engineering community really do they value the kind of data which you produce with reference to ecology or the life or the kind of system perspective from your side, your science side? Are there any gaps?
Very good question, Dr. Anilkumar. The thing is, applicable for multiple sectors, not only river, but there are the knowledge generated in the universities and research institutions, and ultimately coming into the planning process, much of the data is not integrated into the
That's what.
whole planning of the policy process. And there definitely we have
How do we address that?
yeah, and that actually we need a concerted effort and some kind of lobby by the academicians also. Basically, the problem with the academicians, to be frank, is that they do a research project, sometimes publish, and there ends the story. And this is actually all these are basically public money, and that public money it has to find a social application, and then definitely we have to also follow it up. And also in all these policy processes, for example, majority of the river, the diversion program, restoration program, ultimately end as the business of a small group of community who are actually part of the bureaucracy as well. So we also need to push forward and push for integrating the data already generated, especially on the ecology of the river, into the final the restoration and river development projects also. So for that, actually, we need a better networking, and the seminars like that which you organize here may be a platform to trigger that kind of a networking. And the scientists also should speak actually, especially when there is their findings are not actually finally taken into account while framing a policy for the restoration. You also have to respond.
That is what. So scientists no more should be a very academically oriented and refrain from the social kind of issues and social level of the management. But when I see in our country, by and large, the scientific community and the normal society, there is a kind of a divide. You know? So where but maybe Kerala is an exception where citizen science is getting promoted. So how that bridge, that gap, the science, then the societal, whether it is the administrative body or the common man, do you think this is citizen science or people science, that sort of a movement that can help in the eco-restoration movement?
Yeah, sure. That is you said that point, and that is actually a gap. Actually, Kerala was one of the examples where the people's-led the science campaign was actually strongly rooted, but we could not actually take that momentum forward. It all the including the social changes began in Kerala mainly because of this kind of citizens involvement, and citizen science also play a very critical role. But now the many of the critical citizen science data collection remain with certain fields only. So what we need definitely is more and more citizen science involvement in not only collecting data but also in implementing the process, including the participation of the stakeholders. And then also there is one more gap which is connected with your question, and that is many of the academicians should also know how to communicate with the public. The hard science, if you deliver the hard science, even not only the common man, including the bureaucrats and politicians, they don't understand. So that kind of a platform should also be there.
So the Dr. Bijukumar, he is a known expert in the area of aquatic biology in the country, and what we can conclude is the restoration of any ecosystem, particularly the river ecosystem, is the lifeline ecosystem. We need to have the kind of strong linkage between the hardcore scientist and the society, including the administrative community, and where the citizen science also play a significant role. Where, for example, Kerala set that example in the past, though we lagged now. But this sort of an approach with the good communication skills, what he said, scientists are happy with the communicating in scientific journals, but how effectively scientists can communicate with the common man. So I think that this could be a lesson for the Asia Pacific region, where when we think about empowering the global movement on the ecosystem restoration by this decade, before we pass this 2030, a very significant year for many international commitments. Thank you.